Hello friends, Adam here with FED. Triangle Strategy comes out in just a few days, but with a solid chunk of the game playable with the demo, I feel comfortable sharing some very beginner tips. So this isn't going to be a guide for people who've been playing strategy games their entire life, or for people who are really familiar with like Final Fantasy Tactics or even Fire Emblem necessarily. This is going to be more for people who are like new to strategy games, or maybe feel like they aren't as good at them. So let us get into our 3 tips for the day. Triangle Strategy actually makes it really easy to keep track of turn order. There's always a graphic at the bottom of the screen that shows the order. But sometimes you run into the issue of not being able to tell the difference between generic enemies who are in the same class. There is an incredibly simple way to get around this. Anytime you are in control, you can press L or R to highlight different slots of the turn order. This also causes the map cursor to highlight the unit in that slot. So as you can see here, we have these two bowmen, or not bowmen, but there's a bowman and a blade guy who honestly look exactly the same in their portraits, right? So it's like, who's actually going to be moving in the third in the turn order, and who's going to be moving fifth? Well, you just go, press R a couple times, you get to see who's who. It's very useful, and it's something that you need to regularly check as you are going throughout your playthrough of Triangle Strategy. And it's really important to keep this in mind for the next tips. Knowing turn order is crucial to taking advantage of what we're going to talk about next. Also, as a little note, you can even just highlight an enemy unit with your cursor, and they have a number appear there. That number 8 there, 10, 11. That is the turn order. That is when they are going to move. So Triangle Strategy does a really good job of teaching you that attacking from behind deals bonus damage, right? I think it's pretty easy to understand. It's not something that you are really going to be questioning. But what it doesn't really tell you very well is that when you attacking from the side or the front does matter as well. So if you attack from the side, you deal the same amount of damage. You're not going to deal any bonus damage or anything. But what happens is you get a boost to your accuracy. And for most units, that doesn't matter, especially like Anna here, whose hit is generally 100 in the first place. Like, she just deals, like, it's 98 on this guy. So we can show it here. So it's 98 here. And we put him on the side. And instead of 98, now it's 100 on this guy. And again, that doesn't matter a whole lot, because hit rates tend to be pretty high in this game, especially for your units. But Huette, for instance, is a unit that really benefits from taking advantage of that, because her hit rates tend to be in the high 80s when attacking from the front. So making sure she attacks from the side, or the back if you can, side if you can't get to the back, can be really beneficial. Another thing that the game does a really good job of teaching you is that attacking from the opposite side of one of your units, like attacking an enemy that is being pinched essentially, causes follow-up attacks. What it doesn't do is explain a lot of the intricacies along with that, right? So like here, we're not directly behind, but we are diagonally behind, and I guess it works. We can throw a poison at this guy. It will also cause Roland to attack. So we throw poison, and Roland attacks, right? So that's all well and good. So, pinching is always a good thing, right? We get that. But what we might forget is our attack and move order. So here, if we make sure to attack this guy, let's attack this guy here first. So nice stabbing to him. Then we get to move. So if you're used to Fire Emblem, it's always move and then attack. Like, you do attacking or using an item ends your turn completely. Your unit cannot move anymore. But in this game, you can attack then move, or do an action then move. And that can be used for a lot of really cool tactics. Like here, we attack this guy because maybe I want to deal damage to him, or maybe we normally would have had like Anna right here where this knight is, if I could have, and we would have had a double attack. And then we move him over like here, right? So now he's facing this way over here. So now when Sarah Noah gets to attack in just a minute, we can make sure to get a double attack here, or a follow-up. Another thing to note here is that we can set up a follow-up attack here, actually, with a bow. That not everyone really knows this, right? So we can do this right here. We can attack here. And even though it's not like necessarily melee range, it does set up for a follow-up with Roland again here. So that positioning was pretty clutch, right? Alright, here's the next thing I want to talk about here. The previous tip being that like understanding the turn order is really important. Now you need to understand how to manipulate that turn order a little bit, and there's a few ways to do that. Like Serenoa's delayed strike makes the enemy's turn come later. There are a QP ability, or a quintessence, or whatever it's called. QP ability, you press minus once you have it in tandem. Move an ally's turn directly after your own. You can use that whenever, even like free of your turn, I believe. And that's pretty cool. And also you could just like box enemies in. So if we like we could put like Serenoa here, and then if we can get like Frederica up here, we'd box this guy in, he can't move. That's dangerous because it can lead to you getting follow-up attacked by the enemy pretty easily. So we're not going to do that right now, but it still can, it could happen. So what I want to do here is to make sure we get a lot of attacks off on the shield bearer here. We're going to use a delayed strike on this guy. So we're going to delay his turn to make sure we get, and now if we look for that guy on the turn order, he got pushed back a little bit, so now he goes after Anna and Roland here. So now we can have Anna attack, and then get a follow-up, and then even move after attacking to set up a follow-up for Roland. He's probably going to die before that, because he doesn't have as much HP, but on a boss, that can be really clutch. So let me show you what I mean here. Okay, so here's what I mean here. We have a follow-up opportunity here with Anna, because we delayed strike this guy, right? Now Roland not Roland, sorry, what's his face kills. And because of Anna's act twice, which is really good by the way, she can move again. We could put her, say, it doesn't really matter where we put her, these guys are all really close to dead. So we'll put her over here and just attack. Or actually, if we're feeling froggy, you know what we can do? We can go here, do throw poison, and get a follow-up attack here with Roland. So, which is over the top, it's an overkill, but it's still awesome.
I feel stronger already.
And I didn't really set up well for a follow-up attack, but again, I wasn't too worried about it because everyone's like dead, basically. So, offensive positioning, it isn't necessarily something that it's like comes to mind right away, but the big things to remember is that delaying an enemy's turn order with like Serenoa's attack or other things you can do, really important. Being able to set up multiple attacks is going to be a really easy way to melt down a boss's HP, and really follow-up attacks in the early game at least is the easiest way to deal a lot of damage. That might change later when you get unlock new abilities and more magic, but for these first 3 chapters that we have access to right now, this is the way to kill enemies, right? This is the fastest way. All right, for our last tip of the day for this video, we're going to talk about defensive positioning, which should really always be on your mind whenever you're ending your turn. So, you know the basics of it are taught pretty well. You know, when you stop moving, you can choose which direction you're facing. You want to make sure that the enemy can't attack you from the back, and you want to make sure you can avoid follow-up attacks from the enemy, right? So that's the basics of it, and the game does a good job of teaching you that. But it's how do you do that that's important to keep in mind. So this map I felt was a pretty good way to illustrate this, right? So we're on a bridge here. Say we want to just come attack this guy, right? Or maybe let's maybe even be a little safer. Here, let's see the move order here. Alright, so that guy's going to attack first, which would be able to set up a double attack for them. He has 5 move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so if I go here and throw poison, he can attack, get a double attack. If we went right there. Alright, so let's do this instead. Let's go here. Let's throw poison at this guy. And because Anna's awesome, she can do it twice. Might as well. Alright, so now that we're at the end of our turn here, and we considered follow-up attacks and stuff, we can now think about which way do we want to face here. And you may be inclined to have her face towards the enemy, right? Because you're like, you want them to attack you from the front because that's the most beneficial place for them to attack you, right? It's where you take the least damage and they have the worst accuracy. But I'm going to argue against that. What you're going to want to do is face your back towards a wall here. So that space back there isn't traversable by most units. unless you like freeze it or something, but for now it's not really too much of a worry. So we place Ana right here and face her away from the wall, so back to the wall. That way she cannot be attacked from the back. And we'll end our turn like that. So that guy's actually going to run away. So I actually haven't seen that yet. So first time seeing that that AI. Alright, some more defensive things. It's important to see your army as kind of like a line going through your units, if that makes sense, like an imaginary line. So if there's an easy way to show it here, we want to like see a line going straight through the middle. So for us here, and since we're on two fronts, it's going to be more like two lines. But say we move Roland here. This is a fine enough spot for him, right? But that leaves our line open and allows these guys to get behind Roland and behind Ana and set up double attacks, right? To set up the follow-up attacks. So we move here, or maybe even better, move here. Or we could go forward. So it all depends on who is going to be moving next, right? So that guy's gonna be moving next, so he'll be able to get behind the enemy line, our player line pretty easily. But right after he moves, we'll be able to move Huet and maybe set up some better defenses on this side. So let's do that. Let's put Roland here. Just have a normal attack. Cute, gotta level up. Woohoo! All right, let's put this back. And again, we're gonna have him face away from the wall here to ensure we don't get backsmacked. All right, so now that Huet can move, I do want her just a little bit. Want her to block here, right? So now we have our defensive line that they can't move past. So there's no chance of us getting back attacked. That is good stuff. But before I move here, keeping tip number 2 in mind, I do want to make sure I attack in a smart way as well. And I'm trying to see, will this set up, this does not set up a back attack. I mean a follow-up attack. I'm not quite in the right position. So we can't follow-up attack there, that's fine. So let's move here. And actually, even better, let's put her here. And we'll just attack the boss guy, and then we'll lock this other guy in. That's fine, it's not a big deal. But this is a pretty solid defensive position now. Now on the other side, we kind of want to set up the same thing, right? And that's just kind of your things to, just like kind of your basic things to keep in mind, right? So to review, this keep your back covered, and you want to accomplish that, you want to be really cognizant, really be aware of the battlefield and your surroundings. You know, if there's a non-traversable space that you can put your back to, that's pretty key to keeping your units safe and healthy. So essentially, keep your unit to your back to a wall is a good way to think of it. When possible, we want to prevent enemies from pinching you for follow-up attacks, which we do by thinking of our army as a line, or having an imaginary line drawn through our army and keeping the enemy on one side of it, right? And finally, a last note here is I want to mention AoE attacks. Some enemy mages and other things are going to have area of effect attacks, and they're going to be able to hit you multiple of units at one time if you're bunched up too closely. Luckily on this map, we don't have to really worry about that too much, but say they had like an enemy fire mage or ice mage or something, they could totally just plant an ice attack right here on this space and hit Huet, Ana, and Roland, and that would be pretty devastating, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. But really, I think the last thing that you need to know for defensive positioning at the very basic level is not to overextend. If you played a strategy game before, this is a good rule of thumb, like always, not to overextend your units. And overextending is just like pushing one unit or one character out far away from all their buddies, their friends, into enemy lines with no real good defensive capability, like without being able to survive. It really just hurts your survivability. So here, for instance, would be like moving Serenoa just out in the middle of these guys, and he has no real backup. He's too far away from anyone to really help him too much. Because Serenoa is such a beast and these enemies aren't that strong, he would probably be fine overall. But later in the game, I imagine this is not going to be low manning is not going to be a super great strategy, and doing this is not going to be smart. So let's give this guy smack. So this would be a bad move, right? You don't want to do this. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for our beginner guide to three simple but very important things to understand in triangle strategy. So again, a quick overview. Keep your eye on your turn order. Remember, L and R are your best friends on the battlefield, so you can see who is going when. And it does go all the way out. Like, it goes out pretty far, like 30 turns or something like that, right? So definitely something to keep an eye on. Your offensive positioning is crucial. You definitely want to set up for as many follow-up attacks as you can, especially in the early game. And your defensive positioning is very, very important. You want to prevent as many follow-up attacks as possible. And you also want to prevent being attacked from behind as often as possible. But yeah, that's going to do it for us here. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more triangle strategy content. I will be covering it this week, and then also just after it's released, we're going to be playing it on the channel. I'm really excited, actually. It's looking very, very good. Just these first 3 chapters have made me really excited for the game. So look forward to that. We'll be playing on hard mode here. Because, you know, we're just like that. We're just hard like that. Again, thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, and I'll catch you next time, friends.